Hi, this is The Recovering Perfectionist. I'm Claire Barton and you're in the right place at the right time. If you're starting to feel like some of your perfectionism is really getting in the way of you moving forward, getting started or finishing anything, this is absolutely the right show for you. This is rehab for your perfectionism, baby, so grab yourself a glass of wine or a cuppa and let's get stuck into it. I am here with the lovely Liz Scarfe, who is a process-oriented psychotherapist and facilitator and trainer based in Melbourne. Hi, Liz. Nice to see you again.
It's good to see you too, Claire. Thanks for having me.
No problem. Great to have you here. So for everyone watching and listening, Liz and I first came across each other probably about 6 months ago, I think, something like that.
Yeah, that's right.
And I think I was your avatar interviewee when you were doing some market research. And then I had a wonderful session from you afterwards. And I just loved your energy. I loved how you spoke. You were very articulate and obviously really passionate about everything you do. And the whole inner critic stuff was something that was kind of fairly new to me, I guess, in the last 12 to 18 months that I've started to understand what the hell it even is. And I think from memory in our session, in our very first session, you were like, so what questions do you have? And I'm like, what's an inner critic exactly? Or something really cool like that. And I just loved how you explained it. I'd heard it kind of explained a few times before, but I really loved how you said it's like you're on a bus and you're the driver of the bus, but there's all these other people on the bus. And there's, someone down the back and she's sucking her thumb and holding onto her blankie and crying herself to sleep. And there's the other guy who's sitting behind you and he's like, go faster, or put your foot on the brake. And he's a real backseat driver and all these other kind of personalities. And I was like, oh, I get it. And that's how, when I talk about it sometimes, which is very infrequent, I must admit, but when it's come up in conversations with my friends or my partner or whatever, that's how I've tried to explain it, probably completely inarticulately. So I might get you to explain it in your words in a bit more of a sexy way than what I've just done. And tell us a bit about what an inner critic is, and then we'll get stuck into how it kind of shows up in businesses typically.
Okay, I'd forgotten about that explanation. That's a great reminder. I think you're doing really well with explaining it. That's cool. Look, I'll jump into it, but just before I do, I'll say, look, there's lots of different ideas about what inner critics are and how they're constructed. Yeah, so this isn't like a gospel. It's like one approach. And so as you talk to other people, and as other people explore, what inner criticism means for them and their experiences, they'll kind of have diverse ideas around that too. So this works for some people and not for others. Yeah. But basically the perspective I come from, the way I try to explain it is that, we're not just like one identity internally. Like we've kind of got a lot of diversity inside of us, and there's sort of parts of us that we think that's who we are, and we're okay with accepting this kind of a certain set identity or characteristics. This is who we are, and but they're kind of more than that too. Like we're not a static, fixed characteristic or personality. Now we're kind of always growing and evolving and developing new parts of ourselves. Or hopefully, this is kind of what we're supposed to be doing. When we get stuck, that's often how we come into therapy. But inner critics tend to sit around this sense of identity and either stop us taking risks or push us a lot to grow quicker than we actually are comfortable with. So I often think about it as an inner kind of character or role that is often telling you, as you said, like go slower, don't be, in Australia particularly, we have the lay low and fit in kind of inner critic that is really trying to protect us from a tall poppy culture. It says don't be shiny, don't be creative or powerful or leaderful or any of those things. Just, play it safe. Let's
stick to the status quo.
Yeah, really old-fashioned kind of risk manager style. And then another one that just kind of says, come on, just do better. You can do more, work harder. You're better than this, and you're being lazy. And it's actually kind of like a really kind of a coach, but really painful. Like come on, you piece of crap, you can do better. And it's like, well, actually, none of us grow well from or develop or make change or take risks when we're kind of pushed around like that. We tend to think that that's what works, but actually inner compassion actually works a lot better. But inner critics get constructed by how we're parented, or really key figures in our sort of developmental period, and also by the culture. When you break down what is it that's being said to you, you'll see it replicated in the culture a lot about who you should be, how you should behave in order to fit in, to be loved, to be successful, whatever that means. And you often also see your parents in moments where I go, oh my God, that's my mother's voice. Or my dad always used to say blah, blah. And it's not necessarily because they were like bad parents. Yeah, it's just that's partly how, we kind of, these things get constructed. And, parents are all trying to do it.
Absolutely. It's been interesting now when you say that as well. I've done some psychotherapy and hypnotherapy in the last 2 years or so, and some of the stuff that came up for me in some regression, I won't go into it too much, but some of the stuff that came up for me in regression as an adult, I think, oh, that was totally, like, I totally get why my parents did that. I would do exactly the same thing, but in my 3 or 4-year-old mind, it was absolutely awful, and it shaped how my whole inner compass has kind of been shaped in terms of what I think. Oh, here's my dog. Hi, George. George is not an inner critic. He's just a big fluffy dog. That's weird.
Unconditional love.
Unconditional love. Yeah, there's nothing bad happen with George. There's his little nose. So I think it's really interesting about kind of understanding what they're there for. And I remember when we chatted last time that some of them are there, even the ones that are kind of going like, come on, you can do it, you can go, just do it, you can totally do this, like you can run that marathon next week, you don't need to train, you can do it, you're cool. And they're the ones that you kind of think like, yeah, I can do it. But then actually that's also kind of an inner critic, because it's also sort of setting you up for failure. And then there's the other inner critic who's going, told you couldn't do it. Who did you think you were that you could just go and, hi George, you could just go and do a marathon, that sort of thing. So I think it's a really interesting set. Like, it's not just that you've got one inner critic. There might be one that's kind of got a louder voice, or that shows up more often, or whatever. But there's so many different little kind of things in there that kind of can be a bit of a downfall. And I guess one of the ones that I'm really interested in chatting with you about today, given that this is the recovering perfectionist, is the perfectionist inner critic. I think that's a really interesting one, and I had I'm interested to see where you sort of take this conversation, because I know I had a chat with someone a couple of weeks ago, and they had read or heard or had a conversation somewhere that perfectionism generally isn't actually perfectionism. The most common type of perfectionism is avoidance. And I was like, oh my God, it's so true in some ways. Like, you're avoiding, sometimes if you're trying to be so perfectionist about something that you don't even get started, you're avoiding that failure, or you're avoiding disappointing someone, or you're avoiding feeling embarrassed or something like that. And sometimes if you are doing a task and you keep doing it beyond the point of completion, to the point that you're trying to always strive for this perfection, you're actually avoiding doing the next thing because do you know what I mean? So I thought that was a really interesting thing.
Yeah.
So I guess I'd love to kind of, get your spin on the inner critic perfectionist thing.
Yeah, and I think that's bang on. And I think one of the places we see it a lot, particularly women in business, is around branding and logos. Is that people will spend like months refining the subtle shade of lilac and the logo or something.
Yeah.
And actually, it's an edge to getting started on the next part.
Serving
because we've also seen some very, very successful businesswomen with really average branding.
Yeah, or none.
That was none. Yeah, it was a really big lesson for me when I came to doing it too. Just when this kind of fluffing around and overworking this particular thing, this is an edge to getting started.
Yes.
And so I think that's really true. Another couple of things I guess I think about perfectionism is it definitely is a signal of a self-confidence issue. And particularly, I think women are particularly struck by it. Partly because we're enculturated to try and be perfect, especially appearance-based, but that actually because we generally are a bit one down in the culture relative to men. If I was to speak about it, sort of really men and women. Obviously, the gender spectrum is a lot broader than that.
Yeah.
But you know, like we have to work harder to get the same opportunities, or to be, you know, we actually have to do better than male counterparts to succeed. And so, you know, we saw it in the presidential debate. Hillary Clinton coming in and saying, "Actually, I'm prepared."
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, and I remember reading about Angela Merkel, you know, for the IMF, you know, over preparing for everything. And I think perfectionism too. It's like we over prepare, overwork. We know absolutely everything about it because we cannot afford to be seen as not knowing everything about it, because it'll get jumped.
That's
If we're working kind of in that context where we're also sort of working with a more, I guess, a more sort of patriarchal or male-based dominant system. Not only, and it's not the only thing that happens, right? There's also, you know, you could say the complete opposite for some people's experiences too, but generally and certainly that's what a lot of research shows.
Yeah.
And I think also sometimes that perfectionism is a real fear of failure too, of course. It's like, I can't afford to not know, I can't afford for this to fail, but not because we actually fear failure, but we fear inner shaming. And so this is those inner critics. It's where, you know, oh, I didn't know the answer to the question. I wasn't well prepared enough. It wasn't my best work. And then all of a sudden it becomes not just this little thing that you can just go, yeah, oh well, big deal, moving on. Tomorrow's another day, not the end of my world. We go, oh my God, therefore I'm a bad person.
Totally catastrophize it.
Catastrophize it, but actually you don't just fail the task or fail the goal, you fail your whole self.
Oh God. We got goosebumps on my goosebumps. You know, it's so true. Yeah.
Yeah. So, you know, we end up kind of getting shamed. We can't just, you know, go, oh, you know, could have done a bit better. Oh, well, next time. It's like, oh, I could have done a bit better. Actually, oh God, I'm a total failure. What am I doing in this work? I shouldn't be here. Oh my God, why do people trust me to help them? Why do I, you know, and it becomes this.
That's it. I'm going to go work at Macca's.
Exactly. I should give up, blah, blah, blah. So it just becomes, it gets very blown out of proportion. And that's an inner critic who's partly being protective by shaming, saying, yeah, don't do this. You know, we get shamed by some inner critics and other critics go, yeah, let's just pull out. Because there is also, and it's not for everybody, but some people also have inner critics that I kind of call killer critics, that are an imprint or an internalization of a previous abuse experiences, where they now have a very active role that goes beyond kind of what I call the garden variety critics, which are harmful enough in themselves. And then for some people, they kind of have this extra super nasty inner critics. I just tend to think it's no benevolent function. I think the other two that we've spoken about have a benevolent function. That can be helpful once we can actually renegotiate how we get spoken to internally.
And so in that sort of a sense, we might be skipping a couple of steps here, but when those sort of things pop up about the perfectionism and the fear and that sort of thing, I guess the first step is to recognize that that's what's happening, and that it's not actually, you know, the rest of the world who's thinking that you're doing a shit job, or that you should quit, or that, you know, you've completely failed or anything like that. It's recognizing that it's an internal thing, and it's there to keep you safe, and that's cool. And, you know, kind of recognizing that before you can then deal with it. Because I kind of, when I first started hearing about the inner critic, I was like, well, how do I get rid of them? I don't want them anymore. But, you know, self included, it's like they're not going anywhere. We just need to educate them, and we need to give them a place, and we need to give them a job, and we need to give them, I don't know, whatever the other kind of things are. So kind of give them some, a different job, and kind of knock them down a couple of notches in terms of what, how much say they get in what we do.
I think it's complicated. It's so complicated. People are so complicated.
Yes.
And it's so true that we all just want them to go away because we're suffering. We just want suffering to stop, and it's totally normal. And the idea of having to work on it and get closer to critics is terrifying for a lot of people.
Right.
And it's like, you know, actually I've spent my whole life until this point trying to not deal with this and not have to look at it.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, and now you want me to look at it? Are you serious? It's like, what kind of crazy person does that?
Yeah, right.
And I think to start with, often the work is I think it is hard, I think all kind of sort of deep introspective work, it's hard work. And it's not for the faint-hearted, to be honest. And one of the first things that often happens for people when they start really becoming aware of the inner dialogue and how negative it is there's a lot of grief, actually a lot of sadness, because they go, oh my God, I've been so mean to myself like my whole life. Because also one of the things we've been trying to ignore is the pain and the hurt that we get from being so mean to ourselves. And so that's one of the, you know, because I tend to think, you know, we all get around trying to do two things: manage pain and feel a little more powerful than we feel.
Yeah, right.
And, you know, find anything we can to feel a bit better about ourselves and to try to suppress our experiences of suffering. And so that's, I think, one of the reasons why it's tough to get started with really starting to notice inner criticism and how that's happening for you, because it's painful. It's really tough. And it's partly why I tend to think people should do it on their own a lot, because there has been, it's an abusive dynamic, basically. I sort of say to people, imagine
relationship.
Imagine someone has been walking around following you for however long you've had this voice in your head saying those things to you. Like, you know, who would put up with that? Or, you know, that would destroy you, kind of thing. Like, it's, you know, it's tough stuff and it shouldn't be underestimated. And I think that, yeah, noticing is the first step, but it must also really kind of go hand in hand with being able to stick up for yourself and learning to protect and say, you know what, that's not okay. No one talks to me like that.
Yes.
You got something to say, you can say it, but you got to be nice to me about it.
Yeah, right.
And I've seen a lot of things where people just say, just notice those thoughts and say thank you and let them go. And I'm like, no, don't actually.
Yeah.
You need to stop and confront them. It's like watching a kid getting bullied and just standing there and watching. You know, that's actually worse for the kid that's being bullied, because if you just stand and observe, if you just stand by and observe, you become complicit with the abusive figure.
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
You're basically saying to the person who's being, you know, harassed or bullied, I'm not going to do anything about it. You're not worth it.
Yeah.
I'm not going to stick up for you. I'm just going to stand by and watch.
Gosh.
And so, when we do it inside, you know, it's like it's not actually helping the parts of us that are suffering and getting hurt. Just to be noticed is not enough.
That's so interesting. And I guess, so you're saying, like, you've got your inner critics and then there's your inner nice girl as well? Or is that, like, are they kind of having a little bit of a battle inside, and then me sitting here in this physical space, I'm the one who needs to go, hey, you two talk nicely to each other, sort of thing? Is that kind of the relationship, or is it more like the inner critic and me?
Look, it's interesting, isn't it? I reckon different people can construct this and think about these characters in different ways that totally work for them. When I work with people in therapy around this, one of the first things we do, because safety is so important to me in therapy, it's not okay to just be really maverick with people's processes, and especially around abuse. And so we spend a lot of time working around safety, and particularly inner safety. So we're looking for protective figures to start with. And so I get people to kind of think about who could protect them from this kind of inner figure. Is there someone they know? Is it someone, a celebrity or a movie figure, some mythological character? It might even be something from nature. It could be an animal. Or because sometimes people don't even feel it in themselves. They can't feel a protective response. They just feel hurt.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And they don't have this kind of like, hey, this is not okay. So we look for it. We look for the pattern of that somewhere else. And I've had people say, oh, it's Buffy. I just saw Buffy the Vampire Slayer. You know,
killing my
Buffy fan. Yeah.
Driving
and she's just going to kick his ass. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, right.
And then somebody else, you know, sometimes people have big cats, like tigers or lions, or, you know, and these are symbols of people's own power, because a lot of our processes relative to critics is actually really stealing back the power that they've been directing against us all our lives, and using it for our own well-being and for our goals and ambition, for our self-worth. So I think however those figures come up for people is really they're part of their own process in that moment. And these protective roles, I think they change over time too, right? To start with, they're often really blunt, and they just you know, they're aggressive, they may be violent, and some people don't like this. They're kind of against this in themselves because they think, oh, I don't like violence and stuff. And I kind of just remind people, look, it's not actually like you're not going out to kick people and be mean to people. Actually, it's actually just a physical way to sort of re-embody and access power. And I think often it needs to happen through movement. I've seen that so many times where, you know, I just want to slap them or I just want to hit them. And so I get people to do that in therapy with you know, cushions and stuff. And, you know, everyone's always a bit nervous about it because it feels a bit awkward because we've got inner critics telling us, and this is a bit daggy. But it's always incredibly profound. They just go, wow, I just noticed this thing in my body, or it's this, or, you know, it just, So I'm always kind of looking for the signal of how does protection show itself right now? What kind of channel of experience, what kind of character, what's the essence of that? And then in that moment, that's the perfect way to start kind of really defending yourself relative to inner critics. And the next week it might be something different, or you might stick with that style for a year.
Yeah.
It's very individual, but for me, it's always, the work always needs to start with a lot of protection where people can just start building that muscle of going, not okay, not any debating, not like, oh, but you know, we've had a tough week, or I've got 5 kids, or blah, blah. It's like, don't make excuses for ourselves against inner critics. It's like just engaging and feeding the diatribe. It's just like, it don't be mean to me, it's not okay.
It's
or,
so
you know,
interesting.
kick your ass.
yeah, exactly. Or I'll get Buffy onto you.
Exactly. I'm going to kill you. I'm going to kill you. You know, is another thing too. It's very powerful.
Yeah, right. God. So I guess 2 things. In the case of like doing things in real life, is say if you get something sort of critical pops in your mind, in your mind about someone else. So it's not an internal thing. It's like what is that person doing? Or that was a stupid thing, or whatever kind of thing pops up. Is that still an inner critic kind of a voice?
Yeah. I think
like
so.
outer critic?
I think there's a couple of, I mean, we project our inner critics onto others a lot, right? So we project them into the relationships with people we know. And I often share this example where, you know, like I'm a little bit messy around the house. I feel a little critical of myself that I'm a bit messy. And so if I didn't know much about inner criticism, I could watch my husband tidying up the house and I could think, oh, there he goes, having a go at me about being messy, you know, and feel attacked, right?
Yes.
But he's just walking around tidying up because that's what he feels like doing. Yeah. If he was like huffing and going, you know, and shooting me dirty looks, then you know, this is not a projected critic. He's critical. But if he's not doing any of that, it's me projecting my criticism onto him. Yeah. And then we also do it out with people we don't even know. We do it out in the world. You know, you walk into a restaurant or a party and all of a sudden you feel self-conscious about what you're wearing.
Mm-hmm.
It's because you've projected your inner critic onto other people that they're thinking about, you know, negatively about how you look. And maybe they are, maybe they're not, maybe they don't care, they don't notice you, all kinds of things. I think we can't really know. But I think, when the other thing we're doing when we're judging other people a lot is we're trying to make ourselves feel better because we don't feel very good inside. Yeah. It's like if we can say, oh, look at that, you know, it makes us kind of for a moment go, it's not me, I'm a little bit better than that. You know, and
oh my gosh,
it's a dirty kind of power though.
Yeah, it is, yeah,
it's a dirty kind of power though. It's not good for us, it's not good for them. But also I just kind of, you know, people do what they can with what they've got. You know, and we have so many different strategies that are really clever ways to kind of hold ourselves together when that's all we've got. And sometimes you don't have the privilege of being, you know, really aware or insightful or getting to work on yourself. You've only got what you've got.
Sure.
And so, you know, I don't like to kind of judge people for doing that. I do it too. You know, there's times where I don't feel grounded in who I am and my own power and my own innate worth. And so I can think, you know, I'm better than other people sometimes as a way to kind of try to fill that hole. When I do, when I do feel really good about myself and kind of that I'm very, very internally focused and internally referenced, I don't actually notice people a lot anymore.
I know. I think it's a really interesting point to get to. And I did a course earlier in the year, and there was, I think, for the first week or so, there was a couple of activities we had to do. And the first one was to just, I think we had like a band or something on our hand. And every time we had a negative thought, whether it was about ourselves, our environment, another person, a whingy thing, like anything at all, you had to swap it over. And I was like, it's only 10 o'clock and my wrists are sore because I've moved it over so many times. And all I've done is get the kids ready for school and take them to daycare. That's all I've done. And I haven't even had an adult conversation with anyone. And I'm so critical of something, or I'm getting frustrated because they're going too slowly, or because someone cut me off on the road, or someone looked weird or was wearing some shoes I didn't like. What the hell? And I just thought, what is wrong with me? This is how I'm starting my day. And I hadn't even noticed it until it had been kind of pointed out. So then I kind of gave myself a bit of a competition about seeing how could I swap that over. So I was like looking around and trying to think of compliments that I would give people. Like just I'd be walking through the shopping centre and going, oh, I like her earrings. Like actually looking for the good. It was a total Pollyanna moment, if you remember that movie from 1,000 years ago. Yeah. She was always about like looking for the good in people, blah, 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 which was just a really interesting, and it felt kind of uncomfortable, but God, it made a big difference to my whole mindset. And I think that was a really like kind of a bit of a turning point for me. And I'm definitely guilty of being completely over analytical. I'm the sort of person that, you know, the same sort of thing. I will read into body language that wasn't there. I will read into something that hasn't even happened. Like if I'm waiting for a call or waiting for a message, I'll start thinking, oh, why haven't that messaged me back? Oh, maybe it's because they saw that thing I did on Facebook a few weeks ago. I was wondering if that was like, I wanted to say, oh, maybe, and there was that conversation. She did say that funny thing that I thought was a joke, but maybe it wasn't actually a joke. And I go on these complete tangents and I talk myself into being someone who people are either annoyed by or can't stand to be around. And I'm like, and I like practical and the logical side of me knows that that's 99% probably not true, but I definitely go down these rabbit holes of that sort of construction thing. And something else that sort of has, I guess, hit me in the last year or so is that I went to see Embrace, the Taron Brumfitt movie. I don't know if you've heard about the body.
I've heard about it, but I haven't got to see it yet. I'd love to know.
It's absolutely incredible. But just watching that made me just change my kind of paranoia, I suppose, about so many things. Like I would often go to the shops and I'd be walking around and I'd be thinking, oh God, I look awful. I shouldn't be wearing these clothes, or you know, this skirt's too short, or my shoes are falling apart, or something. Like I'm always totally over analytical of it. And then after that, I went through the shops and I had this moment of thinking, oh, I look like a bit of a dag. And then instead of just saying, oh, but I don't really care, and actually thinking, yes, I do, I totally care, I'm really thinking about this. I actually really, truly didn't care, because I looked around and I realized no one gave a shit. No one was looking at me.
Yeah.
No one had any idea what I was wearing. There's no one going to go home and go, God, I saw this blonde girl at the shops today and she was shoes. Like, that doesn't happen. People don't care that much about other people, right? They're the same thing. They're going through the shops going, oh, these undies are a bit tight, or oh, I shouldn't have worn this t-shirt today. And we're also concerned with ourselves, but while you're in the moment, you don't remember that. So I just think it's such an interesting thing to kind of, I guess, get over yourself a little bit, in a totally loving and supportive and cuddly, virtual, huggy kind of a way, not just, go and get over it. But, I think the whole inner critic stuff is such an interesting, like you said, you probably need someone to go through it with you, because it can get pretty hairy. It's such a critical part of life, as well as your business and that sort of thing. And like I know are probably the same as everyone, when you start a business and you start going, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do this and it's going to be great and people are going to love me, and people will be able to book in with me for 3 months because I'll be so booked out. And then you get crickets for the first couple of months and you're like, oh, okay, I'm just going to go and stack shelves at Woolies because this is not for me. And but it's all completely relative, and it's all just something you've kind of got to get through, in a process that you have to go through to get to the other side. There's no quick trips around it, is there?
Yeah. I don't think so. I've never seen them, but I'm asking to see that movie. I'm asking to see that movie now. It sounds great. The other thing it makes me think about is this is another thing that kind of people are often, you know, there's when people come to therapy, there's things they think they're working on, and there's this kind of like a bigger picture of processes that they're working on.
Yeah.
And one of those bigger things is about how externally referenced you are, which is that thing about when you go to the shops, how much is it playing on your mind? What other people think? How much do you care? How much do you adapt and change yourself in response to other people's feedback? Or into what you imagine they are thinking.
Yes.
So this is when you really externally reference, when you care too much about the opinions and feedback and imagined feedback of other people. And so one of the main goals of many therapies is to help people to become more internally referenced.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Actually, you know, the center of your decision making is in you. And the center of your opinion about you is in you. It's not, you know, give it to other people and say, here you go, judge me. Here you go, tell me what to do with my life. Or give me some cookies and I will, you know, sit like a dog for you. I will, you know, do whatever you want. I'll roll over. You can, you know, it's that kind of thing where, you know, we get some rewards, so we follow that direction, even though it might not really feel that good for us. And I see this a lot when people, I had a rant recently on one of my Facebook Lives about top 10 dumb and dangerous advice for building self-confidence. And one of them was around, was to cherish compliments. I've seen this around a lot, around just, you know, save all the love notes or the nice emails or the texts that people have sent you. When you're feeling bad, read them. I was like, no, don't. This is actually not good for you. This supports external referencing. And it also, if you want to be able to roll with negative feedback and be okay with when people don't like what you're offering or you get crickets kind of thing, you actually need to also detach from positive feedback. You can't just have one and be, you know, water off a duck's back for other stuff. If you care about what people think about you too much, you're going to care about the positive and the negative. You can't get resilient to negative feedback while puffing yourself up on positive feedback. You've kind of got to go, you know what, your feedback, either way, it's interesting, it's information. I'll take it in this far, but it won't get all the way in me. I will analyse it first because what I think of me matters most. And the truth that I'm following, the feedback that I'm following actually matters most. And I think this couples in with inner criticism too, because inner critics, they're so often playing on that, what does everybody else think? Because this is what the culture teaches us to do, you know, to be judged by everybody and to line up to some kind of ridiculous idea of perfection or success or lovability.
And do you think do you think that whole thing, I know you mentioned about the tall poppy syndrome, but there's also a bit of a culture around making mistakes and stuffing up and kind of being like automatically blaming someone else or automatically trying to deflect it and make excuses for it rather than going, yep, I stuffed up, I'll try better next time, or I won't do it again, or I will learn from this, that sort of thing. But I think it's, and I don't know, maybe it's just, you know, my stuff, but I find, I have found probably until like 5 years ago that I found it really hard to fail at anything. And I really took that sort of thing really hard, where now I'll go, you know what, I've totally messed this up and I'm totally cool with that because I'm human and you're human and you'll stuff up sometimes too. And I'm like truly totally okay with most of it. I won't say 100%. There's still a bit of a thing there. But, I think that's a really big thing as well. And I think it's probably a way that we've been brought up in a masculine kind of energy somehow, that there's this kind of stoicism and not even just resilience, but just this like almost arrogance to say, no, I don't stuff up, I did that on purpose, or I was trying that out, and getting really defensive about making mistakes rather than going, woohoo, I made a mistake, I gave it a bash. And I think, you know, the new kind of, well, certainly new to me, the new sort of feminine dynamic of business and just any sort of relationships feels a little bit uncomfortable to start with, because we've been taught not to stuff up and to always come across to your clients or to your tribe or to your peers, and especially anyone who's working for you, that you are seamless, you've got all your shit sorted out, you know exactly what needs to be happening, you've got it all planned out, everything's all, you know, sweet as. But now, you know, in a different world, especially when you're doing your own business and that sort of thing, that there's no one kind of testing you. There's no one, like, no one cares unless you know, stuff up someone else's business or you're a total pain in the ass. It doesn't really matter. So it's kind of devaluing some of the things that we previously thought was important, i.e. getting it right all the time.
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it? I think there's so many places where that comes from. You know, like when you're a kid, like you're learning to tie your shoelaces kind of thing, but your parents need to leave the house in a hurry and all of a sudden they're huffy and impatient with you. Oh, let me just do it for you. You know, so many little things like that.
Guilty.
Kind of, our space, yeah, me too. Our space for getting things wrong is so small psychologically. We don't have a lot of space and freedom to learn. And the school system doesn't support, you know, a real love of learning and exploration. Either it's a yes, no. Did you get it right? Did you not get it right? And if you got it right, then you're going to get pats on the back. And if you didn't do very well, you're in remedial reading. Or, you know,
oh my gosh.
Yeah, like it's a little bit shaming. And I think it's kind of everywhere. So it's no surprise that a lot of us don't actually do failure very well.
Yeah.
Or it means we can't take risks, or we can't be a little bit different. You know, we can't sort of be a bit unique. But also, our culture marginalises vulnerability massively.
Yeah.
Massively. So and so we do it internally as well. All those cultural messages become internal messages. We marginalise our own vulnerability. So therefore, we don't ever want to put ourselves in situations where we're going to feel like that. So it's not okay to fail. You've got to, be either super perfect at it, over prepare, or just don't take the risk in the first place.
Yeah, sure.
The other thing I see too that I think is concerning when people talk about fail fast, be okay with failing, blah, 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 blah. I say, actually, but let yourself feel hurt from failing. It's okay to be disappointed. Like you had a goal, you had a dream, this thing that you really cherished and you really strive for, and it didn't work out. Don't just gloss over that.
Yeah.
You know, it's okay to be disappointed and a bit hurt and a bit
so true. Yeah.
You know, and be able to hold yourself lovingly in that space without throwing yourself under the bus kind of thing. It's like what you're saying, it's totally the message of self-compassion. Everybody fails. Like, we're imperfectly perfect.
Yeah.
And everybody struggles with very similar issues. And that's okay. It doesn't make you less valuable.
And I think that's a really important thing that I've learned as a parent as well, that I've got a boy and a girl, and probably when my son was about 1.5, we had an au pair with us who has turned into like our best friend and our closest family friend, and she's like an auntie and she's just amazing. And he was going through, I guess, a bit of he was probably almost 2 actually. He was going through a bit of a time when he was just emotional about everything. Like, he was just for a kid who was usually very calm and very content and kind of just did his own thing, he just was going through this patch of just crying all the time. And I was like, oh, what are you doing? It was driving me crazy. I was getting frustrated. And I had been, and I'm very strict, like, and I'm a big believer of not telling kids to stop crying or to stop being such a sook or something like that. I really hate that sort of thing. But I had said to him a couple of times, like, what's wrong? What can I do to fix it? And all that sort of thing. And then, well, if there's nothing wrong, stop crying, because I was just getting frustrated. And the au pair said to me, maybe he just needs to cry. Maybe there's not something wrong. But you know how it is when you're an adult. Sometimes you just build up and you go, I just need to go and watch a sad movie, so I've got a reason to have a cry. There's no reason. I'm not sad. I'm not overwhelmed. I just need to let this thing out. I just need to let it go, right? And so she said to him, do you just need to have a little cry? And he was like, yeah. So he just cried. He just had a cry with a cuddle in a very safe space, just like no talking. We're super quiet. Just do your crying. 10, 15 minutes, and he was happy as, and I don't think he cried for like a couple of weeks after that. He just had this thing, and it was a real like light bulb moment to me to go, okay, we don't need to stop any of this. He needs to be cool with feeling these, you know, disappointment, anger, resentment, all that sort of thing. So we then sort of went in to try and give him a lot more of those words to put with the emotion that he might have been feeling, to validate it. So it's cool. It's absolutely okay if that's what you want to be feeling, and not to try and gloss over it. And I think, like you said before, we do gloss over so much of that stuff, and we gloss over grief, and we gloss over
Yeah.
disappointment and all that sort of thing, when actually we just need to go, okay, well, that's where I'm at. Let's have a little wallow. Go have a wallow, have a cry, go and do whatever you need to do, but just sit with it and be cool with it, and not trying to fix something all the time.
Yeah, I love your story so much, because I think it happens a lot in childhood as we learn to not trust our own experience, or that, you know, they're not valid unless we can rationalize them and understand why they happen. What's the causal nature of this thing that I'm experiencing? And you know, because we're always uncomfortable with the unknown. We want to know why, what's going on, what's going to happen next. So we don't learn to sit in just a feeling space with no clue why. But it's okay, and it's not broken. You're not somehow messy or crazy or anything. It's like you're just having an experience, and just let yourself have it for now without the pressure to understand. And I think, we do a lot as parents, you know, oh, you're okay, don't cry, it's not a big deal, you know, a kid falls over, you'll be right. And it's like, maybe they don't feel like they're going to be right. You can make me a little cry, or, you know, when I fall over, I want to cry.
And there's so many other elements. It's not just because you fell over, it's because you're also tired and your sister stole your toy half an hour ago and you still haven't got that back. Like, it's not just that thing. It's often the same as when you're growing up. There's all these other little things that kind of build up to the point you go, actually, I just need to cry and drink wine and eat chocolate and be okay with that.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's, and this is a big passion of mine, it's about how sensitive we are to ourselves and to others. Like, we're not sensitive enough. And it's something I'm quite impatient about. And when I experience it, like on the road, or, you know, that thing where you're traveling up the escalator at a shopping centre, and people are standing at the end so you can't get off. Drives me bonkers, because I'm just like, what's your problem? Or standing in doorways. I'm just like going, what, are you the only people on the planet? Are you serious? and it's not that I, you know, and then I kind of can calm down and be a little bit compassionate. But sometimes I'm a bit clueless about my environment too. But what it is really deeply for me is I'm very passionate about sensitivity in a more caring world. And then how do we build that? And I think the place to start is we have to do that inside, internally first, be more sensitive to our own suffering. And I think it's particularly difficult if you're quite privileged, if you're a white middle class, mainstream kind of person, and you're slightly socially aware, you can go, wow, I have it better than other people, I really shouldn't complain. And so we marginalise our own our own sort of suffering. And we do as well, right? We're all worried about how big is our butt. You know, am I wearing the right clothes? Is my hair shiny enough? You know, I'm going bald. What, you know, all these little things, they're like little micro-isms that we're experiencing. And we suffer around. When we marginalise those, we'll marginalise the big issues out in the world as well. Like, it's not a good service for people who are suffering big isms, sexism, racism, all this kind of stuff. You know, it's kind of like saying, on one hand, oh, you're allowed to suffer, but I'm not. But that gives a mixed signal about suffering. But there's only really one person in the world who's allowed to suffer, that person who's got it worse than everybody else. And, you know, because we kind of we start comparing our suffering to others as a way to minimise it. And it's just a story we tell ourselves at that edge of really being able to kind of sit with ourselves and our suffering. We tell ourselves a million different stories to prevent us having those experiences. I love what you're doing with your son.
Oh my gosh, we could absolutely talk about this for weeks. I feel like there's something about the happiness trap that you've probably read and all over that sort of thing.
God.
That's an interesting. Well, I didn't get very far through it. I felt like it was a bit of a, you know, opportunity to just feel sorry for yourself and not really get on with anything. But I think it's an interesting theory, I suppose, in terms of, you know, how you kind of get through that. But I'd love to talk to you more at some point about resilience and that kind of that. I think that minimalizing thing is really big for so many reasons. So look, I absolutely love that you came on today. Thank you so much. Do you want to tell us a little bit about what you do, or if anyone wants to get in touch with you, how they can best do that?
Sure. But just a big thank you for having me. It was so great chatting with you. Yeah, I could talk about this topic for a week, so I know how ranty I get.
I hear a podcast coming on.
Maybe. So the best place to find me is at cultivatingconfidence.net. So this is the site for my private practice, and I blog there a lot, sort of at the deep end of the pool, because that's what I'm interested in,
Right.
relative to kind of the inner human experience and confidence and critic issues and power issues. And on my Facebook page, which is also, I think, Cultivating Confidence at Liz Scarfe, with Liz Scarfe, like every Friday afternoon I do a Facebook Live on some kind of topic around confidence or criticism or something, and they're all up on the YouTube channel that people can grab as well. And then if you're in Melbourne, I run a very budget-friendly meetup group called Cultivating Confidence, which people can join and come along just once a month. And, it's like a little mini workshop, but I also kind of make sure there's lots of, chances for people to chat with each other. And I just think it's so healing to go, wow, I'm not alone with this.
Totally.
To realise that everybody's actually struggling with inner criticism, perfectionism, all this kind of confidence stuff. Even though we might all look like we've got our shit together, we're, actually kind of, a lot of us are feeling messy inside. And it's good, so nice to know you're not alone.
Yeah.
So that's some of the best ways.
Oh, they're fantastic. And I'll put them in show notes for anyone who's listening or watching as well, the link. And thank you so much. It was awesome to chat with you again. And I absolutely love your message. I love your passion about it. So I'm sure we will talk again soon.
Yay. Thanks, Claire.
Thanks, Liz.
Bye.